Hello there, my name's Barbara Allen, and during lockdown I'm locked away safely somewhere and taking the opportunity to maybe record a few thoughts about things related to high sensitivity. I've been working with highly sensitive people for well over 20 years, and I've gathered a few thoughts about how life is for them, and I think I might like to share a little bit, particularly with parents of adolescent highly sensitive people. I've come across quite a few highly sensitive people, mostly brought by their parents because they were having a bit of a rough time. And I've formed a few thoughts and ideas, I guess, through the experience of working with them as a parental mentor, that I thought it might be nice to pass along. So what I'm going to talk about is my experience based on those mentoring sessions. It won't be a full range of everything I've covered. There isn't time for that, and I don't want this video to go on for too long. So I'm just going to cover a few points that I think is important to know and understand in your efforts to support your children. So, to begin with, let's just do a quick recap of the four basic foundation components of high sensitivity. Dr. Elaine-Aron, who's done an awful lot of research in the area of high sensitivity, sensory processing sensitivity, as it's also known, and vantage sensitivity. She described four foundations that make up this trait: depth of processing, over-arousal, the propensity to get over-aroused quickly, emotional intensity, and sensory sensitivity. So if your child has had these from birth and you've become increasingly aware of it, then you'll know probably that you have a highly sensitive child, and you can take the test on Dr. Elaine-Aron's website, www.hsperson.com, to actually just check out whether your child falls into the category of high sensitivity. So the good news is, if you have a highly sensitive child, this is a wonderful thing. So try not to be too upset if your child is finding things hard. Highly sensitive children are a little bit different, but they're an absolute joy to have, and much needed by the world. So take heart if you have any worries, and bear in mind that if you're watching this video, it's because you're a caring parent and you're looking into ways to be supportive for your child. So you're not doing bad as a parent yourself anyway. So one of the things that I wanted to say was that highly sensitive people in general, they come in all shapes and sizes, and they come in all the types that you would see on the Myers-Briggs. So not every highly sensitive child is the same. So some are introverts, some are extroverts. About 70% are introverts. Some are high sensation seekers. That means they're very novelty seeking. And you might have noticed this since they were children, but by the time they get to adolescence, you'll be pretty used to the way that they are. So being cautious, that pause to check that's in this evolutionary genetic trait, you'll have noticed quite a lot already. So highly sensitive children can on the 1 minute seem very enthusiastic to do something, and then also at the same time seem as if they're unsure whether they want to do it. And of course their pause to check trait, which they use to check things out before they get involved, comes to the fore in new and novel situations, even for high sensation seekers. So just be aware of that. It's not about being afraid. It's actually about wanting to sit and watch and see how things are before they jump in. There's an advantage to that, which I'm sure you can think of. So one of the things that I wanted to cover in this first video to help you with bringing up adolescents who are highly sensitive is to remember that their way of doing life is different to the majority. So 20% of the population are going to be doing their life differently. It's not that small a minority, so it's worth taking note. The majority of people, when they do life, what they tend to do is do lots of stuff so they can have lots of stuff, and then eventually, after a very long wait, they get to just be and find out who they are. And it's kind of a natural progression, being very busy, getting lots of stuff, and then slowing down and just being. Well, what you need to know about your adolescent is that the natural way of being in this world is to be first. So first of all, they like to be, to know who they are, to know what things have meaning for them, before they start doing stuff. And then eventually, later on, they'll have stuff. That's how it is. And unfortunately, in the system, the way we educate and the way we introduce people to work, we kind of tend to make adolescents think they have to be super busy. They're super busy at school, very, very productive. Then they have to be super busy at college, at university. And then, without barely taking the chance for a breath, they have to be super busy and productive at work. And we all know what that's like. And for some of the population, the majority, that suits them very well. But for highly sensitive people who can get easily over-aroused and overstimulated, who are longing to find who they are so that they can really, really, truly decide their path, rushing them into things is not always a good idea. So hearing from an adolescent when you say, what do you want to do with your life? And hearing, dunno, is quite normal. You might hear it from a lot of adolescents, but it'll go on for quite some time with sensitive teenagers, if you allow them to. One of the dangers, if you don't, if you push them to do things to a timetable that's created for other types of people, is they may just make a decision just to make everyone happy, and the last person to be happy will be them. So it's okay to slow everything down. It's okay to slow everything down for highly sensitive children, and it's okay to slow things down for highly sensitive adolescents as well. I wonder if some of you are already thinking of conversations that you've had and behaviour that you've noticed with your teenagers. Some of them will be very extroverted, have lots of friends, and maybe not show a lot of signs of distress or stress from finding their way in the world. And some of them, perhaps due to their Myers-Briggs typing, might find that there are straighter lines for finding their way. But often for highly sensitive teenagers and adolescents, young people, it's a more winding path, and a lot of that path is tied up with how they feel about themselves. Being able to make a decision, whether we're children or adults, once we've made a decision, and it's part of our process of becoming confident in the world. So a teenager who's finding it hard to make a decision may inadvertently think this means that they're failing because they haven't made a decision yet. So encourage them to be patient with finding out who they are and what they want to do with their life. By now you've probably realised that your teenager is quite different. They might have things in common with their friends. But actually, for a lot of highly sensitive children and teenagers, they often feel like they're different all their lives. And to some extent, I suppose they are. They are going to turn out as different kinds of people. They're going to be really useful too. But when you're in a group of people and you always know that you're a little bit different, but you're trying to pretend that you're not, it can be quite stressful. So just that in itself can be quite hard. One of the things I think we as parents can do, and I know this from my own parenting of 4 highly sensitive children, is try to take charge of your own participation in the competition of life. A lot of schools are set up to say, you must do this by then, and if you don't hurry and do this, everyone else will get in front of you, and you'll never get on in life if you don't do this now. Well, it's not always true about life. If you're really wise, you know that there are different paths to success. And if you rush things, sometimes you don't get the best job. So let's think about you as parents being able to stick up for your child sometimes when perhaps they're being put under a lot of pressure, either to make decisions or get on in life, finish their exams and so on. I've often come across so many teenagers who are in their late teens, they're having a crisis, highly anxious, maybe suffering with depression, and with very concerned parents, who at some stage have thought that having a gap year would be helpful. But in my opinion, a lot of the time, that gap year happens too late. I think there are a lot of highly sensitive children who, after finishing we call them here in the UK, the GCSEs, things that they do when they're 16 years old, which then leads on to 2 years of college and then 3 years of uni. There are a lot of teenagers who could really do with a year off after their GCSE. So at age 16 to 17, a year off. By that I don't mean that they just laze around the whole time, but actually they probably need a breathing space, and it will help them in making decisions about where they want to be and what they want to do. There will be concerns, a fear of missing out, my friends will go on earlier than me. But actually, highly sensitive children end up in different places anyway to their counterparts in the non-HSP population, the other 80%. And they're needed in those different places, so don't panic. If your child is absolutely wiped out, really anxious, feeling depressed, not really sure what they want to do with their life, don't force them on too soon. Let them take time out and, if necessary, work with the school or college to be able to take a year off early. If you don't and your child is really suffering a lot with stress and really not sure what their path is, then instead of a gap year later on, they may have a year of being very ill. So it's worth thinking about the timing of when your child gets to stop this relentless, absolutely relentless journey through education. Here in the UK, children often start school at around 4. And so by the time they're 16, they've been in school for 12 years. It's been long, long days, overstimulating, over-arousing days for 12 long years. And they've worked hard to take exams and do their best for you. So a little bit of time off doesn't do any harm. This won't be needed for all your highly sensitive teenagers and adolescents. Some of them will be fine. They've had enough support. The personalities that they have on top of their high sensitivity work with them well, and they're fine to go on and do the same timetable as everyone else. So if your child is like that, don't worry about it. But do let them decide and take notice of the signs. Unusual people, minorities, like highly sensitive teenagers, they have a different way of growing up and developing. They're often bright. They often have original thought. They often have a very clear idea of what their values are, even from a very young age. So, when you know this about your child, give them the credit for being able to make good decisions in their life. Well, so far, I wonder what you're thinking. This isn't advice for every highly sensitive child or every highly sensitive adolescent. But I wonder if perhaps as parents you're recognising some of the needs of your highly sensitive child, and it's worth just asking them. You don't have to decide now that they instantly have to take a year off or that they've got anxiety issues. Just talk to them and let them come to you and tell you how they're really feeling. All adolescents benefit from a bit of space to talk, even if they say that they don't want to. But eventually they do show you somehow what they need. So it's just a question of paying attention. If you're a highly sensitive parent also, so if you have high sensitivity, just be aware also that it's possible to sometimes that part of your high sensitivity which enables you to attune so well to your child and to really pay attention, sometimes that can go a little bit too far. So teenagers can be very sensitive to intrusiveness. So it's a question of finding a way to be around and available, but without prodding too much so that they feel their boundaries are being missed. And I know it's very difficult because if you're highly sensitive, you're also affected by how your child feels, and you'll probably question yourself a lot about whether you're doing the right job for them. But don't worry, because if the communication's open, they can talk to you and you can make adjustments. You still got to parent. They still need to know what the rules are. You haven't got to give in to every little whim that they have. They'll still be okay. What they do need is to be heard. And in a world where they're the most unusual of the bunch, it's nice for them to be understood and appreciated for all that makes high sensitivity wonderful. Well, that's enough now, I think, in my first video. It may be that you have some comments about this. I know that I hear a lot from parents about negotiating the schools can be hard and the rules of education can be difficult to bend and so on behalf of your children. But if you have any questions or any comments on this, maybe you have a different view, that'd be very welcome as well. So it may be that what I'm saying doesn't kind of ring true for you, and that's okay. We all have different ways to move forward. So thanks for listening this far. I'm going to do another video to cover a couple of other things, so that will follow on fairly shortly. Thanks for listening this far, and I wish you the best. If you need to know more about me, you can find me on www.growingunlimited.co.uk. Everything you need to know about me is in there. And I hope you and your adolescent have a very good day and some interesting discussions. Thanks for watching.